Welcome everyone to our community of practice. We have a special guest here today, a dear friend of my heart, Rob Hutchinson, and I'm just going to read Rob's bio. Robert is an authenticity coach, Enneagram practitioner, an expert in Egyptian symbology who helps clients find clarity and deeper meaning, whether in their business, career, or personal life. His work is rooted in a love of wisdom, people, and planet, bridging ancient knowledge with the challenges and opportunities of today. Robert recently launched Pesedjet on Substack, where he explores lost wisdom and timeless truths, offering fresh sources of meaning-making in our polarized world. He works with change makers who want to help people and planet flourish in harmony by turning powerful, timeless ideas into practical guidance. A professionally accredited coach with the International Enneagram Association, Robert provides coaching supervision, and guidance services through his practice, Authentic Life. You can find out more about his work at authenticlifecompany.com. So I'm putting that in the chat so that you can get his link, and every word I can say firsthand is true. Rob.
Thanks a lot, Ingrid. It's great to be here, and thank you, both of you, Ingrid and Renate, for inviting me. Because I'm here to talk about one of my very favorite subjects, which is the Enneagram and Egyptian symbology. And we're going to be looking at finding your true voice today. So let me just share screen to get started. And there we go. And then when this thing moves, we can hit play, and then we're good to go.
Rob, we're seeing the notes section. I don't know if you would want to put it on presenter mode.
Okay, let's just check that. Great, so we're here to help you find the wisdom of your true voice. And as Ingrid said, I'm Robert Hutchinson. I just launched Pesedjet on Substack, which is a publication where I'll be sharing more about the Enneagram and Egypt symbology. So there's a QR code there on the screen if you want to take a picture or you want to follow me or subscribe on Substack. Let me just do something to move the thing. So let's get started, and let's start right at the beginning. So this is a quote from Leonard Schlein, who says, "Language is destiny, which when a child learns to speak will determine how he or she thinks." And it's right from the very beginning of when we start to learn language and speak. The language that we learn is wiring our brain, literally. And different languages have different focus of attention. So some languages focus on nouns that have masculine or feminine or neuter characteristics. Different languages focus differently on the past, the present, and the future. And different languages focus differently on verbs of motion. And all of this wires the neurons in our brain as to how we see the world and what we pay attention to. So Leonard Schlein wrote a really interesting book, by the way, called The Alphabet and the Goddess. And it's about the transition from spoken word to written word. I'll speak a bit more about that in a bit, but it's really fascinating how the transition into written words has significantly impacted culture. So just before we do that, let's actually do a grounding meditation. So thinking about your childhood. I'll switch off the share just while we do the grounding to arrive. So sitting where you are, and perhaps begin by finding a comfortable position, whether that's seated, standing, or lying down, and gently closing your eyes if this feels comfortable, and taking a breath, taking a deep breath in and out. And as you breathe in, feeling the gift of oxygen entering your nostrils and filling your lungs. And then as you slowly exhale, returning carbon dioxide back into the atmosphere and releasing any tension you might be holding. Allowing your breathing to settle into a natural, steady rhythm. And when you're ready, perhaps bringing attention to the feeling of gravity holding you in place. Feeling the weight of your body resting on the surface beneath you, the solid ground beneath you. Noticing perhaps how the earth supports you effortlessly, holding you in place with a quiet, undeniable truth. This is the truth of gravity, and this is true attachment. A constant, reliable force connecting you to the ground and to the planet itself. Feeling the earth beneath you, anchoring you, connecting you to all that is natural, and connecting all of us on the call today. With each breath in, feeling the air entering your body, fresh and alive. And with each breath out, feeling release, the softening of tension. And perhaps recognizing that breathing itself is truth. The rhythm of life that pulsates moment by moment. Noticing, if you can, the sensations of being alive, the steady pulse of life within you. And connecting to the truth that we are all part of nature. The same nature that holds the mountains and the trees and the rivers. It holds you. And allowing yourself to rest in this truth. The truth of gravity, of breathing, and of being. The truth of presence, right here, in this moment. Simply being, breathing, grounded, present. You're here, you're connected, and you're safe. And when you're ready, gently bringing your awareness back to your surroundings, slowly opening your eyes, and carrying with you a sense of connection, stability, and truth. Right. So, arriving back to the space we're in and the screen and the presentation. And as we were saying, the language is destiny, and the language that we learn as a child determines how we think. So we're going to do the introductions now in the form of asking the question or exploring the question, what are my learned voices? So we're going to break out into pairs, and there's some prompts on the screen. So introduce yourselves by reflecting on what's the voice of your national language, and what's the voice of your family of origin, and what's the voice of your Enneagram type, if you know it. And obviously with the middle question, manage your boundaries on that. If it's not appropriate to talk about that, then it's free to miss out and skip that question. But the introduction is to really explore the voices that you learned as a child and the voices that influence you now in adulthood. And if you're watching online, obviously you can use these as journal prompts as well. So Renate, can we set 10 minutes, 4 minutes each way, plus a couple of minutes connection time, and then we can come back?
Perfect. I'm ready.
Okay, ready when you are, thanks.
Great. So we're going to break out. Welcome back.
Yeah.
Welcome back. So I'm curious to hear, what did you learn about your acquired language from your conversations?
You're on mute, Katie, if you're talking to us.
We had a discussion around a language that's unique to this country, Afrikaans, and then some of the complexities around that.
Yeah.
And that was really interesting and actually quite evocative, things I haven't thought about for a while.
Mm.
Yeah, it was great. Yeah.
Do you have an example of that?
Well, this language is very expressive, but many of us don't speak it. And so we spoke about how both of us, through different ways, mine family-wise and hers through work, we had learned this language. And then Deborah made a particular reference to how this language is spoken in Cape Town in a certain community. And it was just like, bang, I was back in my childhood hearing those voices, standing outside my father's shop, drawing people in.
Wonderful, thanks, Getty. Another share? Is there anyone else would like to share?
I can share if you like.
Great.
I'm Belgian. And when I was presenting it in the breakout room, I noticed that obviously it's not so well known, Belgium as a country, let alone that people know that we have 3 official languages. And I link this to the fact that we have been invaded as a country throughout the different centuries by lots of different people. And therefore, it's part of our educational system to speak different languages. We grow up with it. It translates in openness, in also, being diplomatic and adapting to different people and different cultures. And I've noticed as I talked through it that I've also looked up that openness and diversity in also the people I connect with, the partner I'm with, etc. So never thought about these questions before, so it was quite interesting to do as an exercise.
Yeah, I think it's so interesting, isn't it, when you've grown up in a multilingual environment, at how that switches your brain into a wider range of possibilities, I think, of what you can see and how you can say things.
Yeah, exactly.
And I grew up in a monolingual country, England. We tend to be not so good
Yeah.
learning foreign languages for other reasons. So yeah, whether you grow up in a single language country, dual or even triple like you have, it really affects the way that we interact with the world, right? So let's go back to the presentation, and we just going again. Here we go. So this is the language that I speak. My language is the language of Egyptian symbology, and seen through the Enneagram and connected to Earth. So I use this quote: the Enneagram is the fundamental hieroglyph of a universal language. And my journey in life recently has been to try and understand more of this universal language. I've had a long interest in ancient Egypt, and especially the symbolic side of Egyptology. And I've been working with the Enneagram since 2017. And that's this kind of psychological personal interest. And true to Gurdjieff, there was a third force missing really until a couple of years ago. I had a separate interest in the environment and the earth. I identify as a type 9, so I'm very plugged into the earth and nature. I've been very concerned about what's happening with the planet. And it seems very obvious to put them together, but when I put them together that the third force was the earth, the future, and that's kind of very much the why behind what I'm doing. So going back to Egyptian philosophy and wisdom, they lived very differently in nature and on the earth. They were much more respectful of the earth. Interpreting the wisdom through the Enneagram. The Enneagram is the fundamental hieroglyph. It helps us read. All and included can be read in the Enneagram, as Gurdjieff says. So that's very much the tool, and then the why is to inform where we are right now, because there are certainly big changes coming down the line, and my belief is that we can be better informed about other ways of relating to ourselves, to each other, and the planet Earth. And so that's the big why. So the three come together: Egypt, Enneagram, and Earth, past, present, and future. A couple of quotes here from Egypt. The Shabaka stone is in the British Museum. And it's a copy of some ancient Egyptian text. And one of the phrases in it is, the heart thinks all that it wishes, and the tongue delivers all that it wishes. And this is also a great example of symbolism in Egypt. The heart is the seat of spirit or consciousness, if you like. And in a way, that's the cause. And then the tongue is the transmitter of spirit, and that's the effect. So we have cause and effect here in this short sentence. And then we have the instruction of Amen Emapet. These are some proverbs. They actually became proverbs in the Old Testament eventually. But one of them is, give your ears, listen to the words which are spoken, give your mind to interpreting them. It is profitable to put them in your heart. So this is wonderful, because if we go looking for Enneagram in ancient Egypt in the way that we know it, we're not going to find it. It's not the way the Egyptians spoke. It's not the way they wrote. It's not the way they communicated, but they did it through symbol, through metaphor, and through allegory. And so here in this short phrase, we've got the three centers of intelligence. So ears, listening, and speaking. That's the body, that's the senses. We're putting the words into our mind to interpret them. That's the head center, the thinking center. And then it's profitable to put them in your heart. And that's obviously the heart center, the emotional center, where the value is. The profitable act is to put them in your heart so that you can understand the value of the words. And I also want to let's do a little bit of history, because we're talking about true of voice and the Egyptian concept of it, and it was a very big concept in Egypt. We'll talk a bit more about it in a moment. But I wanted to contextualize it, because the way that we're taught history is a little bit off, to say the least. So this is 100,000 years, 200,000 years, 300,000 years, approximately how long human beings in more or less our modern way have existed. And we kind of look at history as kind of the last 5,000 years, which is when writing first came along. And it's kind of backed up by a Judeo-Christian biblical perspective, which is again kind of 5,000-6,000 years of history. And before that, we kind of just write it off as primitive hunter-gatherers, or as savage, noble savages, etc. And it's not true. It can't be true factually, and it can't be true intuitively either. So if we look back through tens of thousands of years, where we got to with the first known writing didn't come out of nowhere. That's the message that we're told. It didn't come out of nowhere. It came on the back of tens of thousands of years of oral transmission. So we go back 35,000 years, we get the Chauvet cave art from France. If we go back to, this is 90,000 years, we've got Pinnacle Point Cave in South Africa. This cave was inhabited for 60,000 years, between 150,000 and 90,000 years ago. So imagine living in a place that has been inhabited continually by human beings for 60,000 years. We have no concept of the kind of continuity and sense of grounded humanity that must have been the experience of those people living in that place. And if you're in South Africa, that cave is the energy is so powerful. Highly recommend a visit there. And then this is brand new. Just last week, the Kota Korea rock carving was announced in the media. Can you just see there's a kind of cross here? And what this does is it pushes back the first use of symbolism by 100,000 years, according to the historians that found this rock. And throughout this whole time, there was spoken word only. So absolutely everything had to be transmitted via the spoken word. All knowledge, all wisdom, all history, everything was in the spoken word, generation by generation. How to give birth to children, how to educate, how to find food, water, shelter, how to look after each other. It was all transmitted through the spoken word. And we've become lazy in the last 5,000 years because we can start to write things down. We don't need to learn everything in the mind and remember it and communicate it verbally. So this is all to say that, the last 2,000 years is this tiny little gap right at the end here. So when we come to the Egyptian concept of true of voice, it's coming off the back of the tens of thousands of years of oral transmission. And that's why it was so important for them to communicate this concept of true of voice. I just want to look at this art as well, just because it's so difficult for us to get an idea of what humans were like before written history came along 5,000 years ago. This is 35,000 years ago, and these sketches are as advanced and sophisticated as anything in Leonardo da Vinci's notebooks. And this connects with our intuition that these were human beings exactly like us. They saw the world around them. They sketched. They were able to draw. I love these lions on the right. Look at the steely gaze of these lions that are hunting as a pack. There's so much movement and dynamism and perspective in these sketches. And we've got to ask, what were these people who were clearly highly advanced, what were they saying to each other? What were they talking to each other about? And how were they observing each other as well? Because their lives depended on each other in a way that ours doesn't. So what were they seeing about each other's personality patterns? And what were they seeing about each other's survival patterns and survival strategies? So this is all to give a bit of context about the continuity of humanity that connects through from this time to us. And then we come to Gurdjieff. He has to say, to speak the truth, one must know what the truth is and what a lie is. And first of all, in oneself. So as always with many Gurdjieff statements, there's so much in this one sentence. And this is a big ask. You know, this is really getting to the heart of self-observation and self-inquiry and looking at what lies and we tell ourselves and what truth might be. So it's an invitation into a lifelong journey of questioning our patterns and a journey towards finding our truth and how we fool ourselves. As I'm saying, it's a big ask, and it's perfectly summed up in this sentence. So we get to Ma'acheru, and this is the Egyptian for true of voice. And those two words, Ma'a is truth and Cheru is voice. And these two words are still in use today in English. Ma'a became in Greek Ma'atema, mathematics to us, and Cheru became Koru in ancient Greek, which is chorus. So if you were speaking ancient Egyptian, when we say maths chorus, which is what this could literally translate as, but it's translated as true of voice, as this concept from Egypt that was so important. It was the ultimate accolade that you could apply to anybody, a person that was justified, a person of integrity, a person living according to the ideals of Ma'at. These were laws of the universe, laws of living, and a person who's been truthful and honest in speech, action, and intention. So it's through the trueness of our voice that we live well. And ancient people like the Egyptians understood this. So being truthful and living in balance and integrity was essential. So Ma'acheru really refers to a person whose words possess power, so that when they're spoken, the person who speaks them produces what they intend. So it's also very much about influencing and impact on other people, so that your words produce the intent that you give them. So let's split these out and let's look at the principle of Ma'at. And Ma'at is the Egyptian word for balance and harmony. It's balance, harmony, truth, ethics, and justice. This is very much connected with the body center. And Ma'at is the guiding principle of the universe. There are very few definites in life. One of them is that none of us is going to get out of here alive. It's a fact that everything that's alive is going to perish. It's one of the few definites in life. And the other definite is that the universe operates to this principle of Ma'at, or balance. So any system within the universe is going to seek balance. If it didn't do that, the universe would fall apart into chaos. And it's a message that was really built into the Egyptian worldview. They knew that, well, the pharaoh's role was to ensure Ma'at, ensure balance and stability of the Egyptian nation and people. And it's a message that we have lost track of in recent years. We're damaging the environment that we live in. We're damaging the biosphere of planet Earth in a in search of progress. Whereas the Egyptians weren't seeking progress, they were seeking balance and stability, which is a much more intelligent way of living. And we're going to have to, if humanity is going to rebalance literally our presence on planet Earth, we're going to have to go back and rediscover this principle of ma'at, or balance. So Egyptian system theory here is that the whole system would be seeking balance, and every system within the system, every subsystem is seeking balance. And our mind-body system seeks balance. So anger in the body center, fear in the head center, shame in the emotional center, they're functions of archetypes that haven't yet found their ma'at. And when we do find ma'at, when we're in balance, when we're in equilibrium, then we experience positive emotions. And as Schwaller de Lubitsch says, harmony is the method of nature. And we can look at the hieroglyphs here as well. So we've got MA here, Ma, and then the other A is the arm, Ma'at, and the semicircle is the T. So we've got a scythe for cutting. We've got a plinth here, which represents truth. And we've got a forearm, which represents action, and then a semicircle, which is either a loaf of bread or a mound of earth. So we've got a symbology that we can read here, which is truth cuts through falsity as a force of manifestation. So it's really built into their language, written, verbal, and symbolic as well. That truth is an action that's required as part of manifestation, and truth and balance go together. So truth and balance are a cut through falsity as a force of manifestation. And that applies whether it's at a cosmic universal level, and also the Hermetic correspondence, as above, so below. It applies within our own systems of being ourselves. And the Enneagram is a system, obviously, and Ma'at is a very important concept that we can bring to Enneagram, and vice versa. We can bring Enneagram theory to Ma'at to understand that the Enneagram hangs off 0.9, and 0.9 is the balance point of the Enneagram. So 0.9 represents unification, it represents balance and harmony, equilibrium, homeostasis, sustainability, steady state, and stability. All of these physical states that are required for a system to operate. Whether it's the environment or whether it's our personal, our personality, the Enneagram is inviting us into greater balance and greater harmony, and it's inviting us to balance the different parts within us, the different Enneagram parts within us, and the centers. And it's inviting us to 9. It's inviting us towards 0.9 as the dough of the scale, the defining note of the scale, which then is a portal or allows us to move up to the next octave. So remembering, it's easy, self-forgetting is associated with the type 9 personality, but it's also kind of easy to forget it relating to 0.9. There's a lot of movement around the Enneagram, but the point that doesn't move so much is 9. And as I was saying, a body that comes out of homeostasis goes into dis-ease, it goes into disease. Ultimately, any body or any system, any plant, any animal that comes out of equilibrium, the further it moves out of equilibrium, it can move so far out of equilibrium that life isn't sustained anymore and it moves into death. So it's a very important concept, whether we're looking at personalities or whether we're looking at countries and politics, whether we're looking at governance. There is a move away. There's been a move away from this, and my sense is that we're going to have to move a long way back towards this as we move away from out of balance, and we're seeing it all around the world at the moment. With the problems of climate change and the problems of biodiversity, etc. So Ma'at is right action, and right action is Ma'at. They're one and the same. And for me, what I find fascinating about this is that how the Enneagram informs a interpretation of Egyptian symbology, and how Egyptian symbology and philosophy can help us understand the Enneagram better. So placing Ma'at at 0.9 has been really informative and useful for me as understanding what this 0.9 on the Enneagram is all about. And then we come to Heru, chorus, voice. And the voice is the physical manifestation of what's in our heart, of consciousness. There are three aspects of voice that fit with the three centers. So we've got the physical voice. My voice box is resonating. I'm using my breath and my voice box to create voice. That's transmitting through space, through my laptop to your laptops, your computers, and you're hearing it with your ears, and your body is interpreting it back into sound and back into the language that I'm speaking. And language comes from the thinking center, from the head center, always. All language is from the head center. I'll talk about that a bit more later. But it's very important to realize that all words come from the thinking center, the head center. And then our intent comes from the heart. That's the purpose behind what we're saying, the purpose of the words that we choose, and the purpose of our tone of voice, etc. So our language, our voice is an identifier. Banks are very happy these days to use voice as a security filter because it's so unique. The way that we talk, the tone of voice, the pitch that we use, the language that we choose to use, the tone, everything about how we speak is completely unique. So it's the throat chakra that's transmitting energy and information. We're transmitting messages about who we are and how we see the world and the state that we're in. And it's also broadcasting about what we believe about ourselves. So this is how we train people to how to listen or not listen to us and how to respond to us. So we have these four aspects of speech. We can also break it down into focus of attention. It's very much connected to our Enneagram type. When we, as a coach, when we work with clients, we often notice that their focus of attention is as predicted by their dominant Enneagram type. The content of what they say, the number of times that I work with clients and without any prompting, they start to use the language of type. It's one of the ways that we can verify whether someone's Enneagram type is correct, because they will almost always start to use language of type. It's one of the things when I first started working with the Enneagram was so fascinating how literally sometimes people could be reading out of an Enneagram textbook because of the words that they're choosing to use. as I said, intent comes from the heart, that's the purpose. And then the tone of voice is reflected also to our mood. It reflects where we are. In Egypt as well, it's really interesting that they put a huge amount of weight on how words were spoken. So it wasn't just what words were chosen, it was also the way that words were transmitted, the tone of voice, the pitch, the meter, and the rhythm. This was all an important part of Egyptian speech. Unfortunately, we don't know what that was anymore. We do know that this is the way that they spoke, that they put a lot of weight on speaking this way. But unfortunately, the Egyptian language in its actual mode of pronunciation has been lost in time. But we do know that they placed a lot of importance on how words were spoken. So yeah, your voice is a unique identity, and it reflects everything about you. And it's also reflecting your past. It's reflecting your acquired language, your acquired voice. It's affecting certain events that have had an important impact on you. It's transmitting your present state. What's your mood? What's your confidence level? What do you want to transmit? What's your status relative to another person? This is all being transmitted via the voice in the present moment. And then it also affects your potential. So it's impacting your future. So becoming aware of the voice, becoming aware of your true voice, becoming aware of how you can use your voice more effectively is all very important. Because it's a barometer of our state of being. And as I said, it informs other people how to respond to us and how we might be expecting them to respond to us. So let's get into the Enneagram a bit more directly now, and let's look at the three centers. So Russ Hudson talks very much about the specificity of language, and we use a shorthand of body, head, and heart. And I think I would rather move away from that. I'll explain a bit more why I wouldn't use the heart center for the emotional center. But also the thinking center is a better way of talking about than the head center. The head is part of the body after all. A lot of the senses of the body are in the head. So we've got I would call it the emotional center, the thinking center, and the presencing center. That's the body. When we're present, it's all about the senses, the nervous system, and the instincts in the present moment. So the body center, the presencing center, is all about right action, senses, nervous system, and instincts. And it tends to come across with a practical voice. You'll hear body center types 8, 9, and 1. They're talking about they're often talking about the language of how. They're talking about movement, control, autonomy. And the existential question for all body types, as underpinning all of their personality patterns, is, am I in control? And to varying degrees, that you'll experience anger, frustration, or resentment when body center types are feeling more or less in control of themselves, of other people, and the general environment. And I can vouch that as a body center type, as a type 9, if I don't feel in control, then my reactivity will go off quite strongly in the form of, for a type 9, some kind of dissociation from anger, frustration, or resentment, which never works because it always leaks out. Our patterns always leak out. And then if we go to the thinking center, this is the IQ. It's the center that's the home of the intellect, cognition, and meaning. So you'll hear strategic thinking and planning thinking, mental security and certainty is the focus of attention of the thinking center. The existential question there, will I survive? Do I have enough knowledge? Do I have enough information? What are my plans for survival? And it's ruled obviously by the emotions of fear, anxiety, and cynicism. And then the emotional center, the EQ center, the home of authenticity, identity, image, and purpose. So when we're working with emotional center types, we notice how much they talk about relationships and connections. The existential question at the heart of this type is, am I lovable? That comes out again in the language, and then issues around shame, guilt, and distress. And one of the really important things in terms of true voice and language is that the centers get scrambled. And we see this in the way that one center tries to use the language of another or tries to resolve an issue, often through language in another center. So I was working with a client the other day who was in the body center, and I was asking him to get present with his emotions. What emotions are you experiencing at the moment? And quite typically, he talked about frustration. Well, that's a body center reaction rather than an emotion per se. He talked about lack of credit for his work, which is really a thought. That's a thought analysis, a thinking center response. And then he talked about weariness in his body. And again, that's actually a physical sensation, not an emotion. So it's very interesting as a coach to work with clients to be looking at precisely the language that clients use. Very often, where there's an emotional issue, a client is trying to resolve it through the thinking center. And it's impossible for the thinking center to resolve emotional issues. The thinking center dives in and tries to resolve emotional issues through language. And all that is doing is getting wrapped up in thinking center language processing. And that obviously can lead to anxiety, a lot of anxiety. That's really the root cause of anxiety, is thinking through emotional problems. So we may have an emotional problem, we may jump into action. What am I going to do to try and resolve this emotional problem, rather than dealing with the emotional problem in the emotional center, where it's designed to be processed. So the thinking center and the emotional center are both processing centers. They're kind of moving through. And then the presencing center is very much the now center. It's about the now. Renate, I can see you've got your hand up.
Rob, I'm just curious, the issues in the emotional center, shame, guilt, and distress.
Yeah.
It's often in Enneagram circles said that the sort of emotional issue is sadness or grief. So I'm curious on what your take is on that. As an emotional center type, I relate very strongly to sadness as kind of the core emotion that I experience in response to my distress or
yeah. 100%. So I'm actually using that as shorthand for Daniel Siegel's new book. He talks about separation distress leading to sadness. So that's what he's actually talking about there. I really like his new book on the Enneagram, the personal therapy and wholeness. The language he uses is really clean. So he talks about agency for the presencing center, He talks about connection for the emotional center, and bonding for the emotional center, and certainty for the thinking center. So a lot of the language he uses around the types and the centers is very up to date and clean. And this is actually referring to separation distress in his language, which is associated with sadness. So absolutely 100%. So if we talk about separation distress, how does that relate for you and your experience of sadness, Renate?
Yeah, it's separation distress in response to loss of connection.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Perfect. And Ingrid, I can see you've got your hand up.
Yeah, I'm just recalling Marion Gilbert's last session where she spoke about panic as well in the emotional center, that it's panic of being all alone. And it's different to the anxiety in the thinking center, which is about uncertainty and incoming threats. It's about having nobody.
Yeah. I really like these existential questions, to your point, Ingrid. If we think about, am I in control? Ultimately, the answer to that question is no. When none of us is in control, really. We don't know what could happen in the next moment, in the next hour. Existentially, we're not in control of our health and our life. If we go to the thinking center, will I survive? The answer to that existential question is no. And head center types spend a lot of time trying to flee that question. I'll talk about fleeing in a minute. The existential question, am I lovable? So the answer is no for the presencing center, no for the thinking center. For the emotional center, am I lovable? The answer to that question, always, forever, and without question, is yes. So there's an imbalance in these, in the way that these three questions resolve, because as a human being, we're always lovable at a fundamental level. So it's interesting to think about that resolution question is a yes for the emotional center, whereas it's a no for the presencing or the thinking center.
But the emotional center people often think it's a no.
Exactly.
Well, fundamentally think it's a no. So the whole strategy is designed around trying to make it a yes.
Exactly. Yeah. So I'm going to go through each of the centers now in a bit more detail. So the presencing center, it's the body center is there to respond. So the true voice of the body center is alive. The quality is grounded. And as I've been saying, it's the source of the sound of the voice. Communication, we're talking about true voice, and the emphasis really is on spoken word in this presentation. But the body language obviously communicates via its own language, and that is body language itself. And a lot of our communication, I've seen figures above 90% of our communication is through body language. And less than 10% through actual spoken verbal word. So through the body language, we communicate right action, the fact that we're engaged, that we're participating, that we have agency. When the body center is grounded and connected, we've got life force flowing through us. We're responsive, we're intentional. We're alive and awake, and we're collaborative with other people and cooperative. So we have reciprocal interactions with other people. We're tuned into our own sensations and intuition in our body. And then what happens in lower integration is that all of the body center types, 8, 9, and 1, move into self-forgetting in 3 different ways. And this manifests as masking. So when we're working with body center types, 8, 9, and 1, we need to, as coaches, be aware of masking, because clients will go into some form of masking if they're in threat or if they're feeling overwhelmed. And it's worth being aware and being attuned to that if we're working with body center types. So what they're actually doing is trying to resist reality in some way because it's overwhelming. And the effect is that the control center loses self-control in 3 different ways. And that leads to a confusion of personal priorities and will. And body center types, they're using a lot of how-to language. And they're the 3 types that probably use less language than the other center types as well. There's a lot of intuition and instinct going on with body center types that isn't connected to verbal language. So getting body center types to communicate in other ways can be really helpful through art or through music. That's why these therapeutic modalities are so useful, because they can get us away from words, which are quite limited sometimes in communicating what's happening in the body. So then we come to the thinking center, and this is about reasoning. It's the IQ center, as we've said, and the true voice of the thinking center, it's awake. So there's a very clear, quiet quality of mind. And as we've been saying, this is the source of all of the words and the grammar that we speak. So the communication is via verbal language, and we find thinking center types are often very eloquent and very good with their use of words and grammar. In terms of coaching and therapy, if we're translating instincts and bodily sensations and emotions through the spoken word, then we're filtering, or we're translating the emotion and the sensation through their thinking center. So it's also worth bearing in mind that we're not accessing the direct emotion or sensation. And that's where talking therapies can be useful in some ways, but they can also they have their limits. They have and that's where other modalities of therapy and coaching can come in really useful. So the thinking center communicates with courage and trust from their inner voice and authority. It's very clear thinking with discernment and judgment when they're at higher integration, receptive and open to different ideas, and innovative and flexible and creative in thinking. So then at lower integration, the thinking center leads into self-doubting and fleeing. And when we're working with hen center types in 3 different ways, 5, 6, and 7, we're going to see them fleeing from a reality that they're not able to cope with. So when we sense that thinking center types are in some kind of fleeing, then that's a cue that they're in overwhelm, and we need to ground them. We need to get them back into a regulated, or more of a regulated state, so that their thinking center, their body first can relax, and then their thinking center can open into this awake, quiet mind. So the comprehension center at lower integration loses its powers of comprehension, and that leads to confusion of trust and understanding and options in the thinking center. So yeah, they're also using the language of what and why a lot. So what is the information? What do I need to know? And why is this happening? So we'll notice a lot of that kind of language with the thinking center. And then we come to the emotional center. To relate, it's the EQ center. So the true voice of the emotional center is radiant. And it's worth saying that for a heart-centered type to land in the heart is a big deal, and it takes longer. To land in the body is quicker. To get to an open heart, an open thinking state is quicker. the last bit of the whole system to open, to relax, is the heart. So it takes longer, it's slower to get there. But when the heart opens, it's a very warm and generous sense of being connected. As we've been talking about, is the source of the intent of what we say. And communication is via mood. And that's often communicated via tone of voice. It can be transmitted via physical reactions, but also by tone of voice. So it's a communication of very authentic expression, emotionally connected, open-hearted, self-aware, compassionate towards self and others. That practice of compassion, and it has to start with self. It's impossible to be compassionate to others if we're not being compassionate to ourselves. And it's motivated by look at all these wonderful qualities that we associate with the heart center: purpose, loving kindness, compassion, attunement. These qualities are so warm in their own right, aren't they? And then at lower integration in the emotional center, we get to self-deceiving and performing. And this is, again, as coaches working with clients, being aware that emotional center types are likely to be in some form of self-deception or performance when we're working with them. And the more that they're going into dysregulation, or the more they're in overwhelm, the more they're likely to be in some kind of performing. And they're desperately seeking connection, as we've already said. So the connection center loses connection with itself and others. And this is the heartbreaking side of working with heart center types, is I see them often so focused on connection and working towards connection, but at the same time, they're disconnecting themselves through this performative tone of voice. They're self-deceiving, and they're disconnecting themselves from the very thing that they're actually trying most to achieve, which is connection. And this is all based up with a confusion of identity and purpose. So let's do another breakout. Let's do 10 minutes in a three-way discussion. So there's some prompts here on the on what you might talk about, but let's have a conversation about how you feel. How do you know when you're speaking with your true voice? So what does it feel like to speak with your true voice? What subjects do you notice yourself talking about? What motivates you to speak about those subjects? And what do you experience when you're not speaking from your true voice? So in threes, if you manage 10 minutes, so it's kind of 3 minutes each, and then a bit of time for discussion as well. Have a conversation about how you know when you're speaking with your true voice. So when you're ready, Renate.
Thanks, Rob. So there's 2 groups of 3 and 1 group of 4. We'll have
That's
to manage
perfect.
time
Yeah.
a little tighter.
So yeah, great. And then we'll come back and have a conversation about it.
All right, perfect. We're going to break out now. Rob, you did say 10 minutes.
Yeah, I'm a bit. Right. So I'm interesting to hear what your experience. How do you know you're speaking from your true voice? Who'd like to share?
I'll say something, Robert.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Teresa.
Very often, I think I am speaking from my true voice, and it's only on reflection afterwards that I'm actually spotting the other forces that are affecting how I'm speaking. So who I'm with, or
what the situation was or what the expectations were. So it's and then you feel, it's a bit like I was saying, when you've been involved in gossiping, I feel bodily, off. But Nancy made a very nice distinction. She was saying that her true voice is her inner voice to her, and then her outer voice is that combination of her voice and expectations and manners and the company you're in and etc. Because there'll always be, so it's not, it was a very nice distinction, because it wasn't actually we're going to be saying exactly what we think all the time, because obviously we live in society and we live in group. But as long as we know what we think, and we have a practice, either writing or journaling or meditating, to have a conversation with that inner voice. So I thought that was a very, very good job that Nancy did. So for me, as a 9, because mine is often going out into the leaving myself to go out into the what is expected of me from the environment. And somebody from a different center is saying, no, it's what's coming from you. And so that was very beneficial, talking to somebody from a different center.
Yeah. And we were talking actually about 9s, about taking time to catch up when we were in the break. There's a kind of time lag often. It's
the body processing, which is why you can't have an argument in that moment, because and then it obviously you're on your way home and you're thinking of all the things you should have said. So yeah, there is that. It's got to come up from the body, which is more sensation, to get to the head second, after. So yeah.
Okay, great. Thanks, Teresa. So we've got a bit more to do. We're going to talk about inner and outer voice as well. So that's a perfect segue. So what blocks a true voice? We'll just quickly go through this. Those are the words that I've chosen for each of the types. So appropriateness at 1, seeking approval at 2, image creation at 3, false authenticity at 4, observing at 5, seeking permission at 6, dissipation of focus at 7, forcing at 8, and disengagement of 9. And Cynthia Zai, actually, she does voice coaching around Enneagram, and she puts these qualities at the full sound of each voice. So forceful at 1, proud at 2, efficient at 3, breathless at 4, digital at 5, trembling at 6, floating at 7, and explosive at 8, and disengaged at 9. I have a lot of 6s in my life, and I really notice this trembling voice, this trembling quality of a 6. And then myself as identifying as a 9, I know what that disengaged voice sounds like. When 9s are disengaged or self-forgetting, voice can become very monotone. So when we've got more sing-songy peaks and troughs in the voice, of rhythm as well, is when we know that we're a bit more engaged. This is the qualities, the higher qualities from wisdom of the Enneagram. If you look at your
Rob, are you sharing? Are you wanting to share? Because we're not seeing slides.
Yes, we are seeing the slides.
Oh, okay. I've got the whole screen full of everybody. I need to just move the screen. Sorry.
That's all right. So if you look at your own type, look down the list of these qualities, these come out in your voice as well. So if I look down the list at 9, powerful jumps out at me as something that's a little bit uncomfortable, but also curious. And I think my experience of power at 9, it's not a power over, it's a power with. And then unself-conscious jumps out at me straight away. When I'm in true voice, I don't have a personal narrative going on. I have low self-consciousness, and when I'm in false voice or not in true voice, then I get a lot more self-conscious. I don't know, does anyone else want to look down their list and pull out a couple of words? Ingrid, what do you see when you look at 7?
I actually relate far more to the 6.
Okay.
It's like when I'm speaking with true voice, I'm speaking from my knowing. I'm not speaking from images in my head at all. I'm speaking from my own personal experience and my clients and my like a deeper wisdom that is very grounded. And maybe that's because the themes of each center are the core themes for all of those types. But yeah, I'm definitely noticing that when I'm in true voice, I don't know how one expresses, I guess it's assimilating for me in 7, is that it's kind of personally processed. It's I'm here and now, and it's tangible.
Thanks, Ingrid. So you can take these away. These are behaviors and attitudes, obviously, which is the purpose of this grid. But you can take these words away and look at them from a perspective of voice and verbal communication. Which of these words, these qualities, come out when you're speaking with a true voice? And then again, these are the true qualities of each of the types. So they're listed. The top word is the holy idea. The next word is the virtue. The third word is the essence, and the fourth word is the gifts. So these are all the qualities as well that you might associate with your dominant type, but also with your voice when you're speaking with a true voice, when you're at higher integration, and when you're more regulated. So I'm just going quickly through because there's just a last section on inner and outer voice. So Hafez, poet, says the words you speak become the house that you live in. And those are particularly the words of the inner voice. So when we're in higher integration, when we're in true voice, there is less of an inner voice narrative going on. But when there is an inner voice, it shapes how we view ourselves and others in life. It can be critical, distorted, and disconnected from reality. So there's a reflection question here to take away, to write down, or take a picture of the screen. How does your inner voice speak about yourself and your life? A journaling question or a reflection question there to take away. To get a bit clearer about the inner voice and what you say about yourself, what you say about other people, and what you say about your life circumstances as well. That can be very telling about the house that we live in, as Hafez says. And then integrity of word, and a lot of us are trained with integrative Enneagram. The word integrative is there. And Egyptians were very clear that words have power, and particularly in how you describe yourself to others, and the notion of promises to yourself. And as coaches, often we're working with clients who are trying to make promises to themselves, or they're breaking promises with themselves. And every broken promise to yourself, it's widening this gap between your inner and outer truth, and it's telling yourself what you really believe about yourself. So when you make promises and don't follow through, we're losing agency, we're losing self-respect, and we're often diminishing our self-respect with other people as well. So a journey to higher integration, part of the inner work, part of the development work, is about keeping our word to ourselves in particular, and of course to other people. And if you've read the 4 agreements, Don Miguel Ruiz, one of the 4 agreements is be impeccable with your word. And this is one of the difficult agreements to make, which is starting to say I matter and start to be honest and treat yourself with integrity. and being impeccable with your word. So we move towards living in truth between balancing inner and outer truth. And an incongruence is a lack of ma'at, it's a lack of balance and harmony, and that's what's creating disease, unhappiness, and disconnection. So keeping our word is part of being true of voice, meaning aligning words, intentions, and actions, and it's speaking and behaving and being in ma'at that creates inner peace and outer power. And again, when we use power, it's an important word to use. It's not in the sense that we generally understand power in society today, which is power over. It's not, it's power with, to underline that. So question is, how would your life change if you made your word to yourself sacred and trustworthy? And one of the qualities that I've not used so far is wisdom. It's sometimes assigned to 0.5 or type 5. But in the way that I work with the Enneagram and the way that I see the Enneagram, there are 9 virtues. And the combination of all of the virtues is wisdom. So wisdom is the equivalent of the unity of all of the virtues. And I think coming back to this idea of art and wisdom, informing how we treat ourselves and how we treat each other and the world around us. Again, the Enneagram as the sum, as the balance of all of the parts, looking at the symbol, that is what the Enneagram invites us to do, which is to look at the integration of all of the virtues. And once we move beyond initial understanding of our core type, the next step of Enneagram is really to look at all of the types and how they interact together in us, and how we can create more balance between this unified system of qualities and personality patterns. So there's wisdom at every point. And then coming back now to the centers, and this is where we get to the central point of the Enneagram, which is the intelligence of the heart. So we have the power of understanding in the thinking center, the power of truth in the emotional center, and the power of presence in the body. And all of that creates what the Egyptians talk about as the intelligence of the heart. And that's why it's really important that I don't refer to the emotional center as the heart center, because the heart center is the combination of all 3 of the centers acting in concert together. And in Gurdjieff's language, he talks about man number 1, 2, and 3, which are relating to the 3 centers, and there's no hierarchy against those 3. And then person number 4 is this person who has the balanced centers, a permanent center of gravity, as Gurdjieff talks. So this is coming towards this idea from Egypt of the intelligence of the heart being at the center. And it's all of the intelligence centers acting together as they should be acting, and doing their own job in pulling their own weight in their own area and delivering the intelligence and the wisdom of their own center, that comes together to form this intelligence of the heart that's at the middle. And when we get there, we get to a sense of coherence. So simplifying even more, we get to these 3 basic qualities of the whole of the system, which is hope and truth in the heart, so in the emotional center, faith and courage in the thinking center, and love and right action in the presencing center. And just to be sure and to be clear about this, love is an action. That is what love means. It's action. And all of this together is the intelligence of the heart, and all of this informs our true voice. So I was going to do a breakout, and maybe we can have a conversation about this. why don't we come back to this? And if you're watching online, take a photograph of this, and you can use this as journaling prompts. We're not going to have time for a breakout now, but we can maybe come back to this for a conversation at the end. Just a few more things to wrap up before we have a more broader conversation. This is wonderful. This is grandmother law from the Aboriginals in Australia, and talking about clear the throat chakra to clear space. Speak your truths into the world, and journal for once a week for everything you say to yourself. Change the way you speak to yourself, and your world will change. Sing your song into the world around you, and look for nature singing. Hum, sing the song of the land, sing up the land, sing yourself up, sing up your friends and family. And Hazrat Khan is saying the person who has found the keynote in their voice has found the key to their life. So just to end on, this is me. So I offer coaching and supervision services via Authentic Life. And as I said, I've just launched Pesedjet, which is a publication. If you want to know more about the Enneagram and Egyptian symbolic wisdom, then sign up for Pesedjet. We can keep in touch through there. And we've got some time for a conversation to end now, so perhaps I'll go back. We could start with having a think about what truth is in your heart at this moment in time. What is this asking you to step towards, and what fears do you need to face with courage, and how does this require you to speak up? So let's have a conversation to finish the session. Based on what we've been called to say and how we're being called to say it. So I'd love to hear from you. What's in your heart as we come towards the end of this session? If you'd like to go. Or if you want to just feedback anything that you've seen and heard in the session, what you've experienced, that's also good. Who's called to speak?
Debs, you had your hand up earlier. Did you have something you wanted to ask or say?
Mute. I wanted to ask you, Rob, when you put that that graph of all the different types, and you had level 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah.
Which was the higher level of integration? Was it 1?
1, yeah.
1, yeah.
That's from the wisdom of the Enneagram.
Okay.
So there's actually 9 for each type, but I was showing the top 3.
Top 3, okay.
Yeah, so they give some really lovely qualities to aim towards, and I think in a lot of Enneagram teaching we look at what's wrong with the types, and we look at the problems of each type. And I think it's really helpful for myself and when working with clients is to look at those qualities at the top 3. That's what we're aiming towards. And as coaches and as individuals in our own personal work, those qualities and those behaviors, those attitudes, that's possible. And I think most people have had an experience of level 1, even if it's only for a few moments, even if it's only for a few minutes. We don't live at level 1. Nobody lives at level 1, but we've had an experience of level 1. We know what it feels like. We know what situations we were in. We know what we were talking about, and it's an invitation to recognize when I'm not in high integration. I'm recognizing I'm not in high integration right now. What is it about what I'm saying? What is it about the context? What is it about the situation I'm in that is leading me to to be out of congruence. So that's how I use it, and I find it really helpful to be a kind of guiding light.
Thank you.
Yeah, Ingrid.
Just from a trauma-informed perspective on integration and also the neurophysiology in Dan Siegel, is that you've got there a description of the behavior and the attitudes, which are really outward manifestations. And the idea is to experience it at a neurophysiological level. So when integration refers to nervous system integration, the different hemispheres of your brain, so feeling present as well as analytically clear, a clear mind, being in touch with what's going on in the cardiac center and in the gut. So when we're relaxed, we're integrated. And when we're relaxed, those qualities naturally emerge. So in using those levels, just being conscious that we're not trying to be like that. We experience that when we are here and relaxed. So people say, how do I work on myself? How do I say the whole path for the entire Enneagram for every single type is learning to relax. So that's really important.
Yeah, and thanks, Ingrid. Absolutely. And really, in the context of this presentation today, we're talking about using the voice as a barometer to be a litmus test, if you like, of where am I in my congruence? Am I aligned, or am I in stability, or am I not in stability? And it's you know, as it is, all of this work, it's an invitation to self-observe and self-inquire and stop and breathe and create that gap between action and response. Who else has got anything to share from the session today?
Just listening to your voice, Rob, it has such a beautiful, rich tone.
Okay.
And I'm so curious about, like, if there's any work done in terms of actually, because it's a frequency.
Yeah.
You know, it's the voice tone is a frequency that's measurable. And how, I don't know what I'm trying to ask here, but you know, I almost feel soothed and warm receiving your frequency. You know, I'm very sensitive. You know, I started life as a musician, so I'm very sensitive to voice tones.
I
Are
trained in
certain
music.
frequencies that I just like, it's hard for me to sit and listen to a lecture in a voice of a certain frequency, and yet others I feel like I'm bathed in this warmth of this beautiful sound.
Okay, thank you. Well, I trained in music and I used to sing, so maybe that's part of it. I'm very aware of when I'm out of true voice, I go into a very flat monotone voice, and I'm aware that when I'm in a truer voice, there's aliveness in my voice. And I've actually got a funny little anecdote. I was on a podcast last week, and I was talking about truer voice, and I was very confident. I was talking confidently throughout the podcast, and then I started talking about being out of truer voice. And in live time, I started stuttering. I lost the train of thought. I was my voice literally fell apart in the live podcast, and it was just such a interesting observation that I wasn't even in or out of true voice. I was talking about true voice or not true voice. And when I was talking about being out of true voice, the whole thing just fell apart, and it was really interesting.
Yeah, and I'm thinking about Ingrid talking about relaxation. I think when we are truly relaxed, you know, our voice is going to sound different to if we're not relaxed, there's going to be constriction, and it's literally going to come out. The sound is going to be different.
Yeah.
Mm. I've got a little client story if you want to hear it.
Yeah.
I do a lot of team effectiveness work, and at the beginning of the session, I always get the leader to set the strategic context. And sometimes I get the leader's boss to come and give a little strategic contextualization and aligning it with, what the organization's trying to achieve. And I let them say it, and then I say, okay, we're going to reboot and do that differently using the Enneagram. So step onto the middle of the carpet, and now talk straight from the middle of your chest. Let your chest center. I don't always say heart because they're like, I get worried about that. So say, let your voice come from here instead of from here. Don't think about the slide with the 4 pillars and all that crap. The values list. It's like talk from your experience, talk from here, and then they do it, and the whole energy of the room changes. So did you see people's faces? Now, that's how we're gonna work today. And it's a very powerful exercise, and people do it easily, actually. And someone else who had a phobia of public speaking, one of my other clients, and that was one of the reasons he came to see me, was because of an executive promotion. Now he's in the boardroom, and he stutters and he's self-conscious. So I did the same exercise. Rewind, speak from here. Don't think about the slides. Don't think about the project plan. You've got all these years of experience. Let that flow through you and out of your chest. A few weeks later, and he came back the next session, told me he'd been and presented at a conference in Germany. Massive audience of very VIP types. And he said people came to him afterwards and said, that was amazing, well done. And one session, just letting him talk from a different place in himself. So please do that with your clients and see how freaking amazing it is. It really works. And that I learned with working with Rob.
I love that. Love it.
Yeah, I often do somatic exercises the same way with clients around, when the voice is coming from here, when there's tension and anxiety and yeah, getting the extending the whole range of the voice source from the belly right up through past the heart, the lungs, out. Yeah. Bernard, have you got anything to add before you go?
While everyone was speaking, I was busy posting a message, and then I thought to myself, emojis. It's going to be how people hide behind their emojis, and the whole voice conversation, and a generation that uses emojis to express what they want to say. And yeah, that's an observation. I thought,
Yeah.
Thanks.
Well, we know the work is never ending, but Rob, you've given me a whole new set of assignments.
Okay, good. That's
I'll
great.
I'll take them on. They look good to me. A bit scary, some of them.
Is that in the form of the questions? Yeah. Great. Well, I look forward to. Feel free to message me with any insights that come from the questions.
This was an amazing afternoon. Thank you.
I'm glad you enjoyed it. My pleasure.
Awesome.
Thank you, Rob. It was amazing.
You're welcome.
I'm just laughing here, Rob. You were saying that the body types say less words, and talking about emojis. I only got told off today for using the thumbs up emoji. to answer a question. It's like, yes, okay, that's so. My friend told me off and said, you can't just put a thumbs up, and that's like I'm in complete agreement, and just sort of making me reflect that I need to say more, even on my texts.
The clapping emoji is complete agreement. The clapping emoji and then a few hearts.
Yes.
There's
Yes.
a whole,
Yes.
there's a whole etiquette to emojis, isn't it? I don't know them
Just don't
all.
stop my scene.
Not true.
Yeah.
And
But-
apparently a period, a full stop is passive aggressive. So leave that out as well.
Who looks at these things? Like,
I love that.
Teenagers.
Oh my word.
yeah, thanks, Rob. It's been very good. Very good.
Good to see you, Teresa, as always.
Yeah, thanks, Rob. So beautiful. The stuff
You're
is
very
always so enriching.
Lovely, lovely.
Thank
Yeah,
you. I'm going to
Done.
stop the recording. Thanks, Rob.
you're welcome.